We are live. আসসালামু আলাইকুম। স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি সবাইকে এডভাইভ আয়োজিত হায়ার স্টাডিজ নিয়ে একটি অনেক অসাধারণ একটি অনুষ্ঠান which is লাইভ সিরিজ অন ইন্টারন্যাশনাল অ্যাপ্লিকেশন, যেখানে আমরা বিভিন্ন দেশের বিভিন্ন বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের অ্যাপ্লিকেশন প্রসেস, রিকোয়ারমেন্টস, ওইখানে যারা পড়েছে তাদের এক্সপিরিয়েন্স সম্পর্কে আলোচনা করি। আজকে লাইভ সিরিজ অন ইন্টারন্যাশনাল অ্যাপ্লিকেশনের সেকেন্ড এপিসোডে আপনাদের সবাইকে আবারও জানাচ্ছি স্বাগতম। আমাদের আজকের এপিসোডটি সাজানো হয়েছে কানাডা ইউনিভার্সিটির অ্যাপ্লিকেশন প্রসেস নিয়ে। আমাদের সাথে এসব নিয়ে কথা বলার জন্য আপনারা অলরেডি স্টুডিওতে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন আমাদের সাথে ওইখানকার। Let's welcome them into our studio. We have Nabil Rahman all the way from University of Alberta, and then we have Zarin Tasnim all the way from York University. Let's give them a very warm welcome to our studio. Thank you, Bhaiya and Apu, for joining on our studio. Before jumping onto the main session, I'm just gonna give a little bit. We're gonna talk about what is Edvive. Edvive কি? এডভাইভ হচ্ছে একটা হায়ার এডুকেশন কনসালটেন্সি প্ল্যাটফর্ম, যেখানে হায়ার এডুকেশন সম্পর্কে বিভিন্ন সময় বিভিন্ন রকমের আমরা পরামর্শ দিয়ে থাকি। সাথেও স্কিলস ডেভেলপমেন্টের জন্য বিভিন্ন রকমের লাইভ শোজ, ইভেন্টস অ্যারেঞ্জ করেও আমরা করে থাকি। তাই অবশ্যই এই সবসময় এডভাইভের সাথেই থাকুন সবকিছুর জন্য। এবং দিস লাইভ সিরিজ ইন্টারন্যাশনাল অ্যাডমিশন আমাদের সেরকম একটি ইভেন্ট। এডভাইভ সম্পর্কে বিস্তারিত আরেকটু জানার জন্য দেখে আসবে একটি ছোট্ট প্রোমো ভিডিও দেখে আমরা মূল পর্বে ফিরে আসছি। We are back. I guess আমরা এডভাইভ নিয়ে একটি প্রোমো ভিডিও দেখে আসলাম। আশা করি যারা দেখছেন, যাদের এডভাইভ সম্পর্কে ধারণা ছিল না, তাদেরও বিস্তারিত একটু ধারণা হয়ে গেল। এবং দর্শকদের উদ্দেশ্যে বলে রাখছে, আমাদের বর্তমানে এই প্রোগ্রামটি ব্রডকাস্ট করা হচ্ছে আমাদের অফিসিয়াল ফেসবুক পেজ এবং ইউটিউব চ্যানেল থেকে। সো যারা দেখছেন তারা প্রোগ্রামটি বেশি করে শেয়ার করে আপনার ফ্রেন্ডস অ্যান্ড ফলোয়ার্সদের কাছে পৌঁছে দিন, যেন তারাও অনেক বেশি করে দেখতে পারে। এবং আজকে আমাদের যারা দর্শকরা আছে তাদের জন্য একটা স্পেশাল আমাদের একটা প্রোগ্রাম আছে, which is top commenters, যারা টপ কমেন্ট করতে পারবেন, the ones who will be commenting as much as they can, we will be handing over very exciting prizes for them. So বেশি করে কমেন্ট করুন, এঙ্গেজ করুন, আপনার ফ্রেন্ডস ফলোয়ার্সদেরকে কমেন্টসে মেনশন করুন, যাতে আপনি হয়ে যেতে পারেন টপ কন্ট্রিবিউটর অফ দিস শো। সো আর দেরি না করে আমরা চলে যাচ্ছি শোয়ের। আমাদের সাথে খুবই দুজন স্পেশাল গেস্ট আছেন, নাবিল রহমান ভাইয়া অ্যান্ড জারিন তাসনিম আপু। সো ফার্স্টে I will be asking you guys, how are you? How is everything with you? Nabil bhaiya, please.
Pretty good. Thank you very much. Feeling very privileged and happy. এখানে এরকম একটা বড় একটা ইভেন্টের সাথে জড়িত হওয়ার জন্য. So definitely thank you very much for having us over. But yeah, excited to share my insights and help some people out here.
Yeah, we are actually really great. Yeah, Zarin Apu, please say.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm super excited to be here. It's a little early here in Toronto and it's very cold and I miss Bangladesh right now, but hey, onek happy for being here and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, আমি এটা একটু আগে আমরা কথা বলছিলাম যে it's very cold. Well, in comparison to Canada, it's nothing, of course, Bangladesh, but still, এটাতে adapted আমরা, so it's really good. So যেহেতু আজকে আমাদের কথা হবে হচ্ছে application process নিয়ে, so just cut to the chase যে আমরা কথা বলি. So আমি ফার্স্টে ask করবো একটা common question যে how do you just decide যে কিভাবে আমরা just like আমি বাইরে পড়বো, এটা কিভাবে decide আসলেন and the whole experience of applying. Zarin আপু যদি বলতেন ফার্স্টে.
Yeah, so our decision was pretty sudden. I actually wasn't planning on studying abroad. I had pretty good grades and my parents were encouraging me to apply abroad, and kind of Canada was my number one option because I really wasn't interested in going to the US. So yeah, I ended up applying pretty much by myself. By the time I decided that I wanted to apply, it was, I think, like late January. So for the ones who are applying to Canada, as you might know, some of the deadlines are already over or nearing the end. So for me, my options were really limited, but I always knew that I wanted to attend business school. So for me, it was a pretty easy choice. I just kind of looked at the top business schools in Canada, and Schulich was just one of the ones. And my parents really encouraged me to apply to Schulich. So that was the only one that I met the deadline for. And I ended up applying there. And yeah, 4 years later, I've graduated and currently working. So yeah, that was my experience.
And Apu, did you just apply to Canada University, right? Did you apply to any other country? And can you please share the names of the universities that you applied to?
Yeah, for me, like I said, it was very straightforward. I didn't apply anywhere else. I only applied to Schulich School of Business and some backup programs at York. So if I didn't get in, it was a do or die kind of situation. So thank God I got in, but that was the only school I applied to and the only country.
Yeah, I see. Actually, so এখন নাবিল ভাইয়ের experience to Shubhana share that with us.
Thank you very much. So, pretty much like her as well, I was already had that plan that I was going to study abroad for my undergrad. But for me, initially my thought was that, like probably I'm going into the US. I had all my Common App stuff done and everything else. So like a lot of my early preparation for my university education was actually preparing to go into US. But then, Trump happened and a whole bunch of stuff, and my parents were like, you know what, Canada, just try to go for there. The education is like very standardized, very good, and why not, right? So I did change my focus into Canadian universities then, and I applied to the top 9 schools in Canada, and I'm quite happy to say this, honestly. I got into all 9 of them, but then I chose U of A because it was the most preferable for my program and my needs and everything else. And to be quite honest, I would say that was probably one of the best decisions I've made. The experiences I've gathered, the people I've met here, and pretty much the life I'm setting myself up for, I wouldn't have it any other way. So it definitely was a very enlightening experience for me, and I'm happy to be able to be in this platform here and actually share that insight with people. And honestly, if I can inspire somebody by sharing my story or help somebody by sharing my story, why not, right? So yeah, so here I am. I'm in my 3rd year of my economics and finance major. I'm working for a major financial institution right now, so everything's looking good.
Yeah, it is really inspiring, Jay. When we're just trying to just really dreaming at the same time, we're like, no, it's not. I don't think it's এটা আমার হবে না এরকম. I don't think it will work for me. আমি করতে পারবো না এই সেই. But at the end of the day, you just have to go for it. That is the thing. So yeah, that it was really exhilarating to be hearing it from both of you. So এখন আমি যেটা নাবিল ভাইয়ের কাছে আরেকটা জিনিস জানতে চাচ্ছিলাম, সেটা হচ্ছে যে can you please also share the name of universities that you applied to?
Oh yeah. So one of the top few universities that applied was UBC, McGill, obviously U of A, and it was York as well, Western Ontario, and a few other schools there as well. I got accepted to all of them, but then for me, what was really crucial is I needed a healthy balance between professional aspect of my degree and the academic aspect. So the U of A Business School works very closely with the academic and research side of economics, the Department of Economics here. So I personally felt like, you know what, this would be a good mix and balance for me. Other than that, like U of A has always had a really good performance in the governor's challenges as well, which is like worldwide, which was essentially a worldwide and Canadian focused economic challenges as well. So judging all of that together and having family here in Calgary and Edmonton as well, so it just seemed like the best choice for me. But yeah, like to be quite honest, like the best part of choosing to apply to so many universities was I got so much exposure to the different kind of like processes. It's not very different really. It's not like the States, so like a lot of the processes are very standardized. But today, if there's any specific questions about some universities that I have applied to, I'll be more than happy to share my experience with that. So yeah, like I'm excited to see what people come up with in terms of questions. I hope there'll be a lot of good intellectual ones and a lot of silly ones as well. Yeah, let's go for it, right?
Yeah. So I can see that many people have commented many things. So far, no questions. But I can see that many people are commenting. I can say Anisha Chaudhary commented, looking forward to the whole show. Thank you. We are also the same. We're also feeling the same. Then I can see Samia Mahmoud Promi commenting, great show, very helpful. Thank you. আর আবারও বলে দিচ্ছি যারা যারা দেখছেন তাদেরকে যে আপনারা বেশি বেশি করে কমেন্ট করুন, mention your friends and family, and the top commenters, that is the contributors for today's show, we will be handing over them very very exciting prize. So keep commenting, keep engaging with the whole shows. You can be the next one of the contributors. So এখন চলে যাচ্ছে আমাদের নেক্সট কোয়েশ্চেন, সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমি আবারও বলে রাখি, জারিন আপু is from York University, Nabil Rahman Bhaiya is from University of Alberta. So Zarin Apu, can you please tell us about the requirements of your university, like the requirements, application process, and everything?
Sure. So for Schulich School of Business, it's generally a lot more competitive than York University. So for example, for your IELTS score, you will need 7.5 or more. If you're sitting for your O and A levels, you're going to need at least a minimum of B, if not more. And in terms of your like high school average, anywhere like 90% above is like a good range for you to have in terms of admission requirements. And York University is generally a little bit lower. So I think, I'm not exactly sure, but I think the IELTS score is between 6 to 6.5 if I'm not mistaken, and generally it's a lot more lenient in terms of acceptances. So yeah, those are just kind of some of the things that they look for in terms of grades. In terms of your ECAs, there aren't any requirements per se, but it's always good to have a healthy balance of ECAs that contain like good soft skills such as leadership. If you can exemplify good leadership skills in your extracurricular activities, that's always great, especially if you intend on going to business school. I think that's a skill that, you know, is invaluable to anybody, whether that's within school or if that's, you know, you're recruiting and want to work in a corporate environment. So yeah, developing kind of those soft skills is always very helpful if you want to attend business school, in my opinion. So those are just some of the things I would say are kind of the quote unquote admission requirements for Schulich and York.
And Apu, what about standardized tests like SAT, SAT? What are the requirements for those?
Right. So you don't really need SATs for Canada. You just need your IELTS. And yeah, like the application process is pretty straightforward. You go, you apply through OUAC. If you're applying to Ontario University specifically, you apply through OUAC, you send in your application, and then the next step starts, which is kind of your supplementary application. So for example, for Schulich, I had to do like a video interview. They want a little bit more insight into your extracurriculars. So you just kind of have to fill in those information. It's always about how you kind of present yourself, right? So like people are seeing you, they're judging your supplementary application and deciding, whether this candidate is going to be a good fit for this business school. So those are some kind of the key elements that I would recommend students to focus on. Their supplementary application is very, very key. A lot of people oftentimes put a lot of stress on the OUAC application, but that's kind of, in my opinion, like an application form. It's really nothing more than that. The main part is the supplementary application. Not all universities have that. Schulich did. And so, yeah, that was very important for me in terms of me getting accepted.
So for Amra University, York University requirements, we don't need any sorts of standardized tests, but we do need IELTS. IELTS এর ক্ষেত্রে we need a score 7.5 এর বেশি লাগবে scores, and আপু আরেকটা কথা বলো, which is I think should be really focused on, which is supplemental যে requirements গুলো আছে ওগুলাতে আমরা অনেকেই আমি দেখেছি যে they don't really focus on that. They're like, okay, I have done the main part, okay, I'm not gonna focus on that, that's gonna happen somehow. But that is not true. You have to really focus on that. And arekta question আমি একটু ask করতে চাচ্ছিলাম জারিন আপুকে, which is how much effect does academic result have in terms of the application process in York University?
So for Schulich, it's very, very important that you have good grades. Like I mentioned, it's extremely important. That's the first thing that they're going to look at. For York University, it's as long as you have like average grades, it's okay. Oftentimes, I think people don't understand the distinction between Schulich and York. Schulich is under York University, but it is their business school, so the requirements are higher, whereas York University is just a university in general, and if you're applying for their business program specifically, that is not associated with the business school, the requirements are a little bit less, and it's a little bit easier to get into.
Okay, I see. So yeah, there is an importance of academic result, but it's not really strict. Okay, so now coming back to Nabil Bhai. Nabil Bhai, can you please tell us about the requirements in University of Alberta?
For sure, thanks a lot. So kind of like how York works as well with their School of Business. So the Alberta School of Business is definitely a lot more competitive to get in compared to the general admission to the U of A. One thing that is a little different though, you cannot actually get direct admission into the U of A School of Business as of now. They are trying to shift that around and see what options are there, but you actually get into a general program first, and then you have to apply for the business program after your first year, and if your GPA is satisfactory enough. So right off the bat, you can see how much U of A values academics. And this honestly goes across the Canadian universities. I know it kind of goes against the narrative of, having a well-rounded personality or grades aren't everything. But to be quite honest, in Canada, like Zarin said already, SATs are not really a metric for success, and these are not something that we look at. So that absence of not having sat SATs as a metric to, see how smart you are or see if you're the right person, Canada really focuses on that high school aspect of things. So my advice is definitely going to be like, I'm not going to go into like the nitty gritty details of like how many A's and how many B's you need to go into the U of A, because that constantly changes. You can find that information at any time on the U of A website. But I would definitely suggest focusing a lot on the academic portion of things, regardless of whatever program you go into. It can be business, it can be engineering, it can be science. I know U of A has a very rigorous engineering program, so that's something to look at as well. But there's simply no alternative to having good academics. Yes, you do need a certain level of well-rounded personality, especially if you're going to business. I think one of the key things that I would suggest if you're coming to if you're planning to apply to the Alberta School of Business is definitely make sure you have what it takes in terms of the acumen you're required. You need to be articulate, you need to be well composed, you need to know how to speak in a certain kind of way. You need to have that level of poignancy and confidence that is required from a business student. And I'm not saying these are skills, limited to business students. Like obviously anyone else can have the student as well. But I think the smart thing to do here is just, know your strengths and see where they lie. Try to get a head start on that. Essentially, IELTS, I personally didn't need IELTS for my university admission because I had an A star in my English in my O levels, so my university was great that way. I was like, you know what, it's fine. But if you were to apply with IELTS, I think a very good score to have it would be at least 7.5. I was essentially 7.5. It's good to have. I'm not exactly sure if people have gotten in with lower, but I've always found that IELTS is something that's kind of in the back burner, really, because like the first, it's at the end of the day, it is an English proficiency test, right? It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove like how good you are to be studying that program. It's just you know how to speak English.
It just proves that you have
exactly
English.
Right. So I think a lot of people focuses a lot on IELTS. I think the biggest thing that you need to focus on is definitely your O levels and A levels or HSC, SSC, or whatever you're doing. But yeah, I would say in terms of just that admission requirements, try to get those academics in. It's very, very crucial, at least for the U of A.
Yeah. So again, to summarize it up, the things that we just talked about is academic results. In case of if anyone যারা যারা দেখছেন তাদেরকে আবারও বলে রাখছি, if you want to apply for Canada, focus on your academic result. It's not like the only focus is going to be there, but academic results really matters in terms of applying to Canada. So please focus on that. So I can see that many people have commented, and there are a lot of questions on the subject that we're going to talk just right after this ends. আমরা এটার পরে কথা বলতাম. So let's see those questions. Sure. So Abu Bakr has commented that my background is Islamic studies. Can I get admission general in business in diploma by this background? He hasn't said anything in which university, so I'm just gonna get an answer from both of you. Zarin, can you please say about this in terms of your university?
Sure. So diplomas are generally in colleges versus university. So that's the first thing that I think he has to keep in mind. And second of all, I'm not sure if Islamic studies is something that he did in high school or if that's something that, you know, he did in his undergrad and wants to pursue a diploma. That would depend. At the end of the day, as long as you meet kind of the grade requirements, I feel like in general, it shouldn't be a problem. Again, it would really depend on which university you want to apply to or college if in case of a diploma and whether you're meeting those requirements. I think that's a big thing. So if he would be more specific, I feel like I'd be able to direct him a little bit better. But for now, that's my advice.
Yeah. So I think Abu Bakr has got his answer in terms of York University. Nabil Bhaiya, can you please say it in terms of this?
So like I said, the general business isn't really something that's available at the U of A. It isn't really called general business because when you're applying as a first year, you are not exactly in business in the faculty of business at the point. So I like, again, as long as you have your grades up and as long as you can brand yourself in that application, it shouldn't be a problem. I think what needs to be focused on in terms of if you want to go into a business program is really hammer down on that first year, get that GPA requirements ready, and once they do call you up, and the thing is, like, a lot of the programs, a lot of the niche programs in business will ask you to come in person for an interview, and you will have to explain to yourself in front of their admissions of the business faculty to actually see, like, oh, why you are the person for this program. So in terms of stuff like that, I think yeah, your high school results will matter, and your background will matter, but like as long as those were up to the mark, because you got into the U of A first, so that should tell them already that you have commendable enough grades, and then the rest of it is just you being able to sell yourself to get to that business program, right? So I think it really hammers down into those soft skills along with your degree requirement, along with your high school academic requirements. So just try to give it your all. I think I would say in terms of who can get accepted and who cannot is ultimately up to the admissions committee. Try to fill every criteria they have up there and more, you know, and that's how you can get yourself that edge.
I hope Abubakar can see many questions about scholarships. So let's jump onto that topic because scholarships and financial aids is a very main topic while applying to universities, whether it is in USA or Canada. So let's talk about that. So Zarin Apu, can you please tell us about the scholarship and financial aid situation in your university?
Sure. So York University does have quite a few scholarships for international students, and they are quite like hefty scholarships that should pretty much cover the cost of your tuition fee. Uh, the application deadline is coming up. It's February 1st for those scholarships. So anybody who wants to apply, I would recommend jumping onto that. And I'll just give an idea of in terms of like the range of scholarships that are available. So there's your entrance scholarships. They tend to be a little bit smaller in amount. So they range between $1,000 to anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000. And the way you apply for them is you don't have to apply for it. You just send in your application, and if they think that, you know what, this individual deserves to get an entrance scholarship, they will give it to you automatically. It's kind of like you're automatically enrolled into getting that scholarship if they see that you're a good fit. There are some application-based scholarships and there are some nomination-based scholarships. I think a lot of the times people don't understand the distinction. Application-based scholarship, it's pretty much as it says, you fill up the application and you apply. For nomination-based scholarships, you have to be nominated from your high school, saying that, you know what, this individual has, met all the requirements of the scholarship and they deserve to receive the scholarship. So those are some of the different types of scholarships that do exist. Again, like I said, York University does have quite a few scholarships and the deadline is coming up. So if anybody wants to apply, I would ask them to jump on that. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that was really very insightful যে কি হচ্ছে দুইটা টাইপের স্কলারশিপ যেটা আমি ঠিক জানতাম না একটা হচ্ছে অ্যাপ্লিকেশন বেস একটা বেস দ্যাট আর another one is the one that they will be selecting. So আমি এগুলো নিয়ে আমরা আরো জানবো জারিন আপুর কাছে, but before that let's hear the whole situation from University of Alberta from Nabil Bhaiya.
Sure. Thanks a lot. So before I head into that, I think I noticed a question there really fast where it was, if I apply after 15 December deadline to Alberta, will it affect my chances to get any scholarships? So I think this really ties in, this comment really ties into that question as well about scholarships. So the 15 December deadline, as far as I remember, is tied to a lot of the application-based scholarships where a lot of the bursary programs and a few other things there, the leadership awards, those have been known to have that December 15 deadline. So any application, any scholarship that requires an application and has an application date, it's very important to meet that date. U of A is very strict on that because it is a crazy competition to get those scholarships, especially the big money ones. But having said that, even if you do miss the deadline for the application-based scholarship, there's actually a whole bunch of entrance scholarships that you do not need to apply for. Like Zarin mentioned as well, the entrance scholarships or some of these scholarships you will get automatically considered for. That's the same case here in U of A as well. One of the notable ones is the International Student Country Scholarship, which when I applied, I didn't even know that I qualified for. I mean, that makes sense. I guess it's in the name. But then I was really happy to get that scholarship first year right off the bat. I was like, wow, okay, like $7,500, like I'll take it, right? So stuff like that, like don't lose hope, even if you have missed the deadline for it, because there's a whole bunch of entrance scholarships that you might not even know that you qualifying for, but they are going to be considering you for it. Obviously, these scholarships are also available, like the details of it are always available on the sites as well, so you can take a look. But rest assured, for the entrance scholarships, most of them you don't have to apply for. The ones that you do have to apply for, it will be very apparent that you need to apply, and preferably within that deadline. Having said that, I think a big thing to consider here, and this goes back to, my point about how different US admissions is to Canadian admissions. because like I've been an administrator for the Bangladeshis Beyond Border group for a few years now, and it's a growing community of over 50,000 prospective applicants and students studying abroad. And so a lot of the insights that I'm sharing today, and especially related to scholarships, is actually a reflection of that entire community navigating these similar challenges, right? So one of the big things that I have noticed, working with that group for this many years and at this scale, was a lot of people would, like 80% of the texts I would get per month would essentially be like, oh, like, how can I apply for financial aid in Canada? Or how can I apply for need-based scholarships in Canada? And I realized that all these terms are coming from their experience with American universities. So right off the bat, I think it's important to understand that the system doesn't quite work like that, like the way it does in the States in terms of scholarships. The centrally based financial advice, we don't have a FAFSA, we don't have an IFSA, we don't have a CSS profile. None of that is actually applicable to Canada. We don't even have a centralized application system like the Common App, right? We have the OUSC for the Ontario universities, but that's way more basic than what Common App is, and it's also very provincial focused. So I think what people need to do is that take on a very different approach when it comes to searching for scholarships, because it really isn't financial aid in Canada that's what should be your focus. It should be scholarships. It should be related to your merits, related to your abilities, essentially. So yeah, in terms of just exploring those, try to get a head start. I think that would be my advice, because like I mentioned before, these deadlines go away faster than you think it does. And given the level of competition there is, you don't want to be late. You know what I mean? You want to put all your cards on the table in the correct order possible. So yeah, just you do your due diligence, and if you're qualified enough and if you give your best shot, you have some real chance of getting some considerable amount of scholarship even in Canada as well.
So to summarize both the situations in the colleges up, the thing is that people really go for aids. They're like, okay, financial aid and everything. But the thing is that they don't know about the scholarship, and they do not research very diligently. They're like, okay, they just scroll through the website and everything. So in terms of Canada, that is not really applicable. You really have to do your research very well. And there are thousands of scholarship. There are Apu and Bhai already said about 2 scholarships, the admission based and another one which is entrance based something. So just do your research properly and get a head start. That is, start really really early. And that is one thing that we all also learned from the previous episode. This is just a common mainstream slogan type, that start early in terms of application. So I think that is really helpful for the viewers. And again, viewers সবাইকে বলে রাখছি, আপনারা বেশি বেশি করে এঙ্গেজ করুন আমাদের শোটার সাথে, অনেক অনেক করে কমেন্ট করুন, কারণ আমরা টপ কন্ট্রিবিউটরের জন্য আমাদের অনেক এক্সাইটিং প্রাইজ আছে. সো ডোন্ট ফরগেট টু react, share and comment as much as you can, and we will try our best to answer all of your questions. So এখন I will be asking you guys যে another one thing is that we have seen in common, that in terms of Canadian university, they are very selective. In also in case of international students related to Tonric, of course, and also they're selective all round. So can you please share the extracurricular activities that you guys did before getting into the colleges that you guys are in right now? So Zarin, can you please say?
Sure. The extracurricular activities that I had, I actually did not have that much, or at least in my opinion, I feel like I didn't have that much. I went to French school for about a year, so I had that. I was a tutor, which I think a lot of people are. So I was a tutor and a TA as well. And that was kind of one of my main things, because I taught a lot of students. So that was one of the key things that I showed. I did a lot of volunteering as well. And let me try to remember. That was like 6 years ago now. I can't even remember. But off the top of my head, those are some of the ones that are coming into my mind. I think having gone to French school, that was kind of helpful for me, because French is the second language in Canada after English, of course. So for me, I found that to be quite helpful even after I came here, and just kind of, for work and stuff like that. So I feel like those were kind of my top ones. Now, like, again, that was 6 years ago, but I know nowadays the ECA requirements, a lot of people, have tons more opportunities, and I feel like, they're able to do a lot more, focusing on kind of the community aspect, positive social changes, and there's just so many things to do now compared to when I reflect back 6 years ago. So those were just some of the ones that are coming to me right off the top of my head that I had.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, like did so many things, and still you're saying that you didn't really do anything. That's not true. You did a lot of stuffs while you were in high school. So, Apu, you got a very good idea about your school's necessities. So, can you please also share some ECS that you believe make a very good impact on the application of students who will be applying to York University?
Sure. I think just in general, and this is not specific to York University, I feel like just in general for universities all across Canada, I think having extracurricular activity, especially being from Bangladesh, I think, there is a lot of room for good social positive change. And I think, if people can focus on kind of doing one or two things, but doing them really well and being committed to them, right? I think a lot of the times people think that, oh, I have to do 10, 12, 15 things and show that all on my application, but that's really, really not true. I personally would advise students to do one or two things, but do them really well and show some tangible achievements, right? So whether that's international recognition or even countrywide recognition, I think that's a very, very big accomplishment as opposed to somebody who might have just participated in 10 different things, but might have not achieved something tangible. So my recommendation is just for all of universities in Canada, for extracurriculars, if you're thinking about what I should be doing, do something you're passionate about, for sure. That's a given. I think that, don't try to force something on yourself. I think the people who review your application can see right through that. So I would recommend definitely, do something that you're passionate about, because if you do something that you're passionate about, chances are you are going to be successful in it, right? So, and focus on one or two key things that you want to do and do them really, really well, as opposed to doing 10 or 15 things just because you think that might help your application. It really, really doesn't, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of my overall recommendation to students.
Okay. So Nabil bhai, can you please say the situation, what were your ECS when you were in high school, and what the ECS that you showed while applying to University of Alberta?
I think one of the highlights for my volunteering and extracurricular activities would be volunteering with the Edward M. Kennedy Center, in short called the EMK Center, in Dhaka, which was actually one of a really, really enlightening experience for me, because I got to meet a lot of different people, I got to meet a lot of ambitious people there, and it was just being in part of that arts and the crafts, and just understanding that side of things was definitely, the social activism part of that organization was definitely really helpful in me almost deciding a lot of the things that I want to get out of my life. So that was very meaningful for me, and I think I was able to showcase that in my applications. I was also heavily involved with student council in my school, so that was something that was, I guess I would say, would be a bit of an eye catcher there in terms of applications. Having a lot of student advocacy plans, and I think those are some of the things that I did. Again, it goes back to that point, doing things that you're passionate about. I was able to transfer that passion back into here, where, like, I'm managing campaign for the Students' Union. I'm heavily involved with a lot of the student advocacy groups on campus right now in university. So that has definitely kind of worked towards that whole, it drives that whole factor, that pipeline, that you should be doing things outside your school that you're actually passionate about. So in terms of extracurricular activities, again, if I go back to that point of not comparing things with the States, it definitely isn't as big of a deal having ECAs in Canada as it is in the States, okay? Because like, if you open up the Common App application, if you open up the Common App application, a huge part of it is just tell me all about your extracurricular activities. So yeah, it is a very big focus in the US. I wouldn't say it is that big of a deciding factor for any university, at least the general program, for most of the Canadian universities that I've applied to. But what I would advise someone who's in high school right now in Bangladesh and trying to, just figure out what they want to do, sit down with yourself, right? Sit down with yourself and create a plan. Ask yourself, what does academic success mean for me? What does career success mean for me? And it doesn't have to be a perfect answer, because as a high schooler, you don't have a lot of lived experiences, and these can change. But the reason I'm asking you to have this plan or set this plan for yourself is because you will understand how your university education will supplement those goals, would help you work towards those goals. And when you can identify those, you would be able to see, okay, in order for me to be an eligible applicant for this, what are the kind of activities, what are the kind of extracurriculars that I may indulge myself into that could give me an edge? And again, obviously, that there has to be that overlap between things that will get you into school or things that will make you more palatable to where things you're passionate about. If there is a disconnect there, like Zarin mentioned, admissions officers will see through right through it. So there has to be that overlap there. And obviously you don't want to do things that you're not passionate about, right? And a big part of finding that passion is actually putting words into your ideas. So I would say, yeah, if you're trying to figure out what kind of ECAs you want to do to get yourself an edge, sit down and create a plan and see where your passion lie. And who knows, after you go through that, you may discover interests that you didn't know you had. And even if they don't positively impact your application, it might make you a better person for it, right? So why not give it a shot? It's a win-win. So yeah, just do try to get creative with it, and just try to ask yourself where your passion lie, and try new things. And as COVID is the perfect time for doing it. You don't have to go outside. There's tons of materials on the internet. You can volunteer virtually with some of the organizations as well. So it's all about how much effort you put in.
Yeah, so this is just one thing that they just said, and I also like to add to this, is that do the thing that you love and you're passionate about, and you just make it very insightful and thoughtful while you are representing it to the university. Put your words, thoughts, and everything in, and say why are you passionate about this, how it is related to you. Make a connection with yourself and the work that you're doing. So in that way, your ACS will, even if it is one ECA, that will make a very significant change to the whole application process. That is really one thing. So another thing, আমরা এখন যেটা আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি অনেকেই কমেন্ট করেছে, so let's go to the comments. I can see Mujibur Rahman commenting, excellent program, is very informative, inspiring, and helpful for the students. Best wishes. Thank you so much. Another thing that I have seen Anisha Chaudhary commenting is that, did anything come to you as a surprise to all of you when you became a student at your respective unis, like costs or rules? Okay, I think this is a very interesting approach of a question. Like, did anything come to a big surprise? Like, of course it has, right? So can you please give us an answer? Nabil Bhai, bolen.
Sure. Yeah, I might have been way too enthusiastic for that question. Anyway, I think one of the big surprises, and this is a really good question, something you need to address actually, and need to prepare yourself as well, is understanding that a lot of the things may not be the way you expected it to be. Okay, so because again, you are 1,000 miles away, you're probably not getting a school tour like kids here do, right? So and I was lucky enough to actually fly here in 8th grade or 9th grade, I think, to visit some of my family, and I actually got to see the U of A campus. But when I did come over for university, it did really baffle me, the sheer amount of people in this university. It's almost 40,000 students in total. It's this sprawling campus, and just the level of impact it had on the economy and the city itself and the province, it was unprecedented. So and it can be intimidating sometimes when you're coming from a small country and you're growing up in a little bubble with all your friends and everything. So I think navigating that is it can be a very eye-opening experience, because you're broadening your perspective a lot. So I think one of the things that really did jump out to me is just the sheer scale of my university, and I'm glad to be able to be in a public research university like this. And it takes me more than half an hour to actually like brisk walk across the campus as well. So that's how massive it is, even more. So yeah, in terms of just I think the size, one thing that was kind of would be on the negative side for me in terms of experience. Yeah, sure, coming to a big university is great because you open yourself up to so many different diversity of thought and ideas. But registration and classes can be a nightmare when you, especially in the first few classes like Biz 201 or Biz 101 or Econ 101. There's like 400 students, and you'd walk into this auditorium of a class, and it's just scary. Like, oh my God, where's the
every pair
professor?
of eyes just get to you.
Yeah, can I ask questions here? Like, what am I supposed to do here? So those can definitely be intimidating. And if you're someone who thinks that you would excel in an environment that's smaller and a lot more personal, 100%, there's nothing wrong with going to a small university. There are a lot of advantages of small universities over big ones. And I have a bunch of friends in liberal arts colleges in the States that loves it. They look at me, they're like, no, I could not do it, you know? So in terms of that, it's really just like understand that you might have to wake up at 6 a.m. to do your registration because you might not get into a class if you don't. That's how massive it is. So yeah, in terms of just surprises, it is full of surprises. You want your university experience to be full of surprises. So there's nothing bad, but you just gotta,
get
watch out
used
for
to
a little
it.
bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was really helpful. Like many people really think when they're just having the dream, okay, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna nail everything, but it's not like that. It's quite very opposite. But you're just gonna don't have to lose the confidence that you had when you are when yeah. Can you share the?
Sorry, I think it's getting stuck. Or is it just me?
No, I think it's me. I'm sorry for that. I'm facing some sorts of technical issues. Yeah, please go on, Apu.
No worries. Did you ask me the same question? I couldn't hear because it just cut off.
Yeah. It's the same question.
I totally agree with everything that Nabil said. I mean, I couldn't agree more. York University is huge. It would probably take me more than 30 minutes to walk across. And to be honest, I've lived on campus for the first 2 years, and I still have a lot of parts of the campus that I haven't visited. Like, I'm not even surprised if somebody's like, oh, do you know where this is? And I'd be like, no idea. It's way too big for me to explore. And because Schulich is just, it's part of York, but it's very like within its own community. So I would just, from my residence, I would walk to Schulich.
Roam around there.
Exactly. I was there. All my classes were there. And then I would just go back home. For me, I didn't really get the chance to explore much, but my comments would be more so on the life in Canada, right? I think a lot of the times people think that, oh, I'm going to Canada. It's like, a first world country. Like, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. Personally, like, I don't have any family here. So I live all by myself. I don't have any relatives, no friends of my family's, nothing. So my parents dropped me off, and that was that. So I basically live fully independently. So that can be that can be a big challenge for a lot of students, right? Because you really have to figure everything on your own. You're completely on your own. In Bangladesh, we have support everywhere, whether that is a car to take you to school, whether that is people helping you around the house. Your parents are always there to help you out if you need anything. But here, I don't have anything like anybody to kind of reach out to, right? For example, if I have an issue here in my daytime, my parents are sleeping, so I couldn't call them and be like, hey, mom and dad, what do I do? I just have to figure it out on my own. Obviously, having lived here over the last 5 years, I've obviously had some great friends, great mentors, great connections. Now I'm all settled in, but when you come in, I think people need to understand that, you're completely independent if you don't have any family here, and you have to figure your life out. And a lot of the times that can be extremely challenging and extremely overwhelming. So you need to give that a solid consideration. It's not just all, rainbows and butterflies that you come here and everything's just going to sort itself out. It's not. So you really have to keep that in mind. For example, like after first semester of university, I was like, mom and dad, peace out. I want to leave. This is too much. It was very challenging for me. And, I had to do everything on my own, and just the initial independence was a bit of a shock for me, but obviously you get used to it. And obviously I'm here now. But yeah, that's something I would highly recommend students to keep in mind, that the independence, you're going to be completely on your own, at least initially. It's going to take some time for you to make friends, know people. So just mentally prepare yourself for that, because that can be a big challenge.
Yeah, that is actually, the Bengali parents can totally agree. They're like, yeah, you're just gonna go. We're not gonna be there. We are gonna not come in your help. You're all on your own. That is one of the biggest threat that they always give, and that is very intimidating. You are like, Okay, yeah, I was planning. I had this much of confidence. My confidence is just leveled way down. So that is really discouraging of part from them. But let's move on to the next question that I have, which is, well, the omnipresent thing, which is the coronavirus. And due to the coronavirus, almost the universities that are being portrayed, the states universities have made changes in the application process. So is it the same case in case of the universities that you guys are in right now? So can you please tell what are the changes that has been brought in that whole application process in the undergraduate program in your respective universities? Nabil Bhaiya.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most crucial issues to address right now. Definitely, what we're facing here, the pandemic had an unprecedented impact on education around the world, not just the universities in Canada. And I understand that a lot of students, in fact, millions of students, are in a very uncertain state right now, just not understanding what they want to do. And I've had people reach out to me. They're terrified that they can't sit for their SATs in Bangladesh right now, and not sure what to do. Like, university admission is stressful enough as it is when things are going as planned, and it's even harder when it's not, right? So I think the big thing for you to first understand is the biggest priority in ensuring a healthy, complete, fantastic application is taking care of your mental health first. If you need to prioritize yourself, you need to prioritize your care, you need to prioritize your sanity first before you can go ahead and create an impactful application for yourself, right? Because if you're not taking care of yourself, especially during this pandemic, in this stress-inducing environment, you might burn yourself out, right? And you won't be able to have a very comprehensive application base. So first of all, my advice right off the bat is please take care of yourself, take care of your family, spend time with them. It's okay. It's going to be okay, because you're not the only person who's going through this. There are millions of others who are going through this. It's going to be okay. A lot of the universities in the States have actually taken measures to address the situation, where they're making SATs as optional, and a few other different like supplementary essays as well. So what I've seen in Canada, at least in my university, is it's a little difficult because of all the remote learning that's going on, and the university is still kind of deciding what they want to do for fall 21 on whether or not they want to continue doing the remote learning. It's a lot of back and forth. But one thing I can say here is the competition. Understand that a lot of people this year has deferred their applications or decided to take a gap year and not apply because they wanted to avoid remote learning. So the biggest thing you need to know right now, if you're applying for fall 2021 or winter or the next, is that you wouldn't just be competing with your graduating class, you would be competing with the class before that as well. And what does that mean? That means crazy amounts of competition, right? Universities would need to be more stringent with who they accept and who they don't. So the sooner you understand that you will be facing almost a meat grinder of competition there, you need to get yourself an edge. And how do you get yourself that edge? Again, goes back to that creating a plan, understanding where your strengths and weaknesses lie, and try to brand yourself that way. One of the things that I would, again, extracurriculars or preparations and stuff, it's very subjective, it's very case specific. But if I were to give you an example of how to prepare for life after COVID in terms of academics and university admissions, try to use this time to do something productive. I know it can be insensitive sometimes to say that, because people are dealing with so much and it's such a mentally draining activity as well. But if you could, after you're done after you take care of your mental health, after you do some self-care that way, after you make sure that you're okay, try to make some productive use of this time. You're sitting at home, you're not being able to go out much, you don't have to. There's so much resources available online. If you want to become an industry professional, try to look up some presentation tactics or public speaking, or help try to get your family to support you through this and get those soft skills, those passive skills ready. If you are going into science or engineering or an academically intensive programs, pick up a data analysis course or something that pushes you to be inquisitive or have strong understanding of subject matter, right? So try to find those trends and make good use of the time that you are sitting at home right now. And who knows, after that might literally just be the edge that pushes you over, right? So just be a little proactive and try to make good use. And COVID or not, if you are up for it, if you know that you can believe in yourself, that you are worthy for this position or whatever application that you're applying for, 100% you can do it.
I say that was really very impactful. Like everyone just focusing on the things that are they know they're just bordering on a level of insanity. If that's, I have seen cases of like they're just so tensed up, and the whole universities and institutions here also very giving very pressure because it's everything is virtual. They're like they're not doing the other behind the scenes. The students, they're just expecting students to not doing anything, but the case is that we are doing many stuffs, and it's really getting very cramped up there. So yeah. So Zainab, can you please also tell us if there has been any change in the application process in terms of York University?
Sure. I can't exactly speak on in terms of if there's been any kind of application process change. Obviously, everything is virtual right now. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And I couldn't agree more with everything that Nabil said. I think those are some really, really great points in terms of some of the things that you can do if you have deferred a year or thinking of, you know what, I'm not going to be applying for, next year or whatever, because it's going to be online. And I do want to correct a misconception. Like personally, my sister, she's studying at University of Waterloo. It's actually her first year, and she's doing it completely virtually. She's in Bangladesh right now, and initially, obviously, it was a big learning curve for her because, I mean, you're just sitting in your room looking at your professors like give lectures online. Like I can only imagine how difficult that must be. But now she's almost at the end of her first semester, and she's already made a couple of friends. She's kind of adapted to the current situation, right? So it's not the end of the world. And if people are thinking like, oh, what's the point? Like, I'm spending so much money, is it worth it? I don't think you should be thinking about it like that. I think that there's still value, and of course at some point hopefully we will come out of this much better and much stronger. But it's not the worst thing, and it's not the end of the world. You can adapt to the situation. A lot of people are having to go through this, unfortunately, and it is out of your control, but it is not the end of the world. And I would recommend the people who aren't attending university, pick up one or two things that you think you want to develop and really focus on those and hammer them down, right? Because I know this is a time that's very tricky, and mental health is a big, big situation right now, personally. But I think that, work on your mental health. And then if you feel like, this is a good time for you to have, and focus on a couple of one or two things that you want to develop, I can guarantee you that it'll really, really pay off when you're applying in the upcoming year. Because like Nabil said, the competition is going to be very, very severe, because a lot of people are just waiting until the doors open and they can kind of come back into the country and they can start applying, right? So just some of those things to keep in mind.
That is also very, really really helpful. I guess যারা যারা দেখছেন তাদের জন্য জিনিসটা অনেক helpful হবে, because so far not many changes has been brought to the whole application process, but it would be really great to do your research and to just get engaged with various sorts of groups and pages that are out there, to really get the whole situation about what's going on. So আমি next ask করতে যাচ্ছিলাম, can you please talk about the part-time jobs that are available around the universities you guys are from? So yeah, Zarin.
Sure. So part-time jobs are obviously like, you have your odd jobs that you can do, working at restaurants and etc. Personally, thankfully, I never kind of worked those jobs. I was really focused on school primarily. And before I was even able to work, I did internships, and I was kind of working part-time in companies while kind of studying. So I feel kind of privileged in that type of a situation. In terms of like other part-time jobs, you can always be a tutor on campus. There's a lot of on-campus jobs. So I would recommend, if you're deciding between part-time jobs off campus and on campus, I would say on campus is definitely better, because you're within your school. You get to know a lot of people, make really, really good connections, because I feel like when you're doing jobs, you have to understand that you're making and building connections in a new country, and this will pay off for you, right? Everything is about making those connections. So I would recommend doing jobs. When you're thinking about doing a job, of course, money is definitely a big thing to keep in mind, but make sure you're also able to leverage the connections that you're making, the people that you're working with. So that's a big thing. I mean, think in Toronto, it's, like one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, and there's tons of jobs available. Jobs are never a problem. Obviously, I'm not talking COVID situation. COVID situation is a little bit different, but in normal times, it's a really good city to come to, and, jobs are good. It is very competitive though. It doesn't go without saying that it's super competitive. So it's not like, oh, you're just going to get a job left and right. You do have to put in your effort. You do have to work hard for it, because there's a lot of people living in the city, right? So competition is high. So that goes to say for part-time jobs. In terms of internships, if you go to a good program, if you network well, you can really land good internships, which are definitely going to help you when you're going to be applying for full-time jobs after graduation, regardless of the program that you're in. I think that's very, very important. For example, at Schulich, it was a must. We had to do internships, right? Like if you didn't do internships, people would be pointing at you like, what, you didn't work, kind of situation. So I would recommend definitely, do internships, build your capability, and, get into the job market as fast as you can. That's going to be the biggest thing for you. And yeah, I think those are just some of the pointers to keep in mind. Some business programs do have co-op options. That's helpful because the university does help you to get the job. But personally, I went to Schulich and it doesn't have a co-op program. So I did have to kind of do that extra bit of legwork there. But, they bring in tons of companies on campus. You can network. There's tons of career fairs, attend all of those things, and really leverage, like I said, again, leveraging your connection is going to be your biggest thing when you're coming into a country, where you don't have pre-established connection. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that was really very informative. Everyone, just when they know when they're applying for Canada, that they have to live on the part-time jobs, because well, considering everything. So that was very, very helpful. So Nabil, can you please also share your 2 cents on this?
Okay, so in terms of part-time jobs, I think one thing that I would really advocate for is on-campus jobs, because there are some really cool opportunities available in almost every university. Personally, I was an RA for 2 years at my university's dorm. I lived on campus all the past 3 years of my degree, and it has been a brilliant experience being an RA in the university dorms. I've got to meet so many different people. It's just a diverse culture as well. It's a lot of fun. There's always community building activities, and at the same time, you get to earn some money, right? What is important though, however, is to understand that part-time jobs cannot be your lifeline here if you are trying to majorly supplement your university expenses here, because I think a lot of the misconception that I see in groups and communities, applicants that are like, oh, how much of my tuition can I pay with my part-time job? You can't. Let me just say right off the bat here, that's not possible for you unless you got a massive scholarship and you only have to pay $2,000 a year or more after that, because and basing those expectations is very unhealthy, because that can set you up for some really hard mental time when you come in here and you realize that you might not be able to afford a lot of the stuff. But what I can say is that, yeah, I've seen people who has been able to, manage their living expenses doing the part-time jobs. But understand that if you're coming to Canada, you're probably going to have a full course load of 5 courses per term, and provided everything goes along the way, you will be spending a lot of time on your studies. So supplementing that, for me, I was lucky enough to pick my hours, and I used to work for 10-12 hours a week, not even too much, and my supervisor was great regarding that. But in terms of if I see myself working part-time all the time and then doing my studies as well, it can get very difficult. In that case, what I want to say is that try to focus on your school first and then everything else. Try to leverage those summers. And the summers are very crucial. For the last 3, every summer I've had an internship with one of the FIs in here, one of the financial institutions, and just, really trying to supplement that into my career. But internships do pay quite a bit, quite a handsome amount, and you get to work full time over the summer. So my advice would be just to really drill down on that and get a cool, great internship over the summer if you want to earn some money and some great experience with it, and use those funds to hopefully supplement your school year university expenses. So yeah, in terms of focus, your focus should be studying, not part-time jobs, but there are a lot of good opportunities if you just know how to look for it, but at the same time, there are a lot of competition as well. So try to keep that in mind. But yeah, in terms of just like internships and co-op terms, like I know our business program supplements co-op hiring for a lot of the companies in the city. So if they do hire Alberta School of Business student, they get a certain amount of subsidy around it, a certain amount of money funds for it. So those are some of the things that your university is supporting you in terms of getting those opportunities. So use those, like there's a lot of similar ones available in a lot of universities across. So try to leverage those resources, try to pivot yourself into those roles, and definitely you're going to earn some good money, but most importantly, you're going to earn some good experience. So yeah, try to focus on those internships or co-op terms, and you should be good to go. You might be on mute there, Shauna. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, that was really, really helpful because from both of your sides, because this full part-time thing is what I also had very questions and very concerns about. Like, okay, what if am I gonna be just like invested on those? Then what's gonna happen in my studies and everything? Because people always say that when you are going to Canada, you really have to do a lot of part-time jobs, but that is not the case. That just come from both of you. So I would like to take one question that I see in the comment section, which I also feel like should be answered by both of you. That is, by Initiative 3 did, or no, sorry, this is not the question. This is the one. Okay, so how would you describe the community atmosphere in your respective universities? It is also very, I feel like this is a beautiful question of because we will be knowing, we those who aren't in your universities knows what are being showed in the websites, in the videos, by the medias. So I would like to very know about the real experience that you guys are like feeling and everything. So Zainab, can you please say?
Sure, I can speak for Schulich specifically and not York, just because I didn't have many courses there, so I wasn't able to interact too much with the students that go to some of the other programs. So for Schulich specifically, it is extremely competitive. I knew it was competitive, but I didn't know how competitive it was. And I mean, hey, people think that Canadians are nice, and they are. They're really nice. They're very helpful people. But at the end of the day, when it's competition, like, everyone wants to look out for themselves. So that's just something I just didn't know that, business school culture can also be, I don't know how to say it nicely, but basically negatively competitive, right? So in a sense, right? So that's something a lot of times people don't understand, that can also impact your mental health as well. Because you go in with a certain expectation that, oh, Canada, everybody's so nice and, whatnot. But when it comes to business, people are gruesome, they're just going to go for it, and you're going to have to go for it yourself as well. It's all just kind of like you're a horse on a track race, and you just got to keep running, keep, trying to survive. So that's just kind of that was kind of the culture at Schulich. I personally had a great time though. I thrive on competition, so it suited me. I know a lot of times, a lot of people don't necessarily thrive under that pressure and that level of competition. So that's something that, people should keep in mind. The professors were amazing. They were always there to help you out no matter what. I made some really, really solid friendships over the years. So I think overall I had a very positive experience. That is only because I thrive under competition. If somebody might not feel the same way, they might have had a different experience, but that was kind of my overall experience.
Yeah, that is. So Nabil, can you please also share your experience in regards of this?
Yeah, I think the sense of community at the U of A is actually pretty strong. And part of it actually speaks to the history and the culture that we have around our university. We're a university that was established in 1901, so it's been more than 100 years this university has been on this exact same grounds. And the best part of that is we have so many different cultures and quirks and sense of community bondings or rituals or whatever you want to say that makes us who we are. There's a sense of identity here to being a player. So being part of that has been a brilliant experience for me. There's a lot of ways you can leverage that and actually, get to meet a lot of different people and have that sense of belonging. I think that's very important for an international student because you are flying thousands of miles away from anything you've ever known. You don't know anyone on campus. You're completely new. So finding that sense of belonging, finding a community right off the bat is really, really important for your mental health and for just your academics as well, right? So I think I've been lucky in terms of just being in a university who's very culturally sophisticated that way and just culturally aware. One thing that I do want to agree with Zarin there is that toxic competition sometimes that's very apparent in a lot of the programs, especially in business programs. You know, I'll walk into the business lounge and only thing I can hear is, oh, I got this much money out of a case comp. I did this. I got this. I got hired by this on this. And this is just an endless, it's just an endless, lack of a better term, pissing contest in terms of who's more cut out for this role. And that can become very toxic, is because you start to doubt your self-esteem. You start to doubt whether you're doing enough or already. So and you can burn yourself out that way. So it's important to really take the good things from the community, but also be wary of those negative aspects of too much of those exposure with, those aspects of the community. So try to believe in yourself, try to put yourself out there, be vulnerable. And honestly, you're going to be opening yourself to mostly good experiences. So yeah, definitely.
So yeah, the thing is that to sum it both up, it is going to be really scary. The world is competitive, but that is one thing that we are all aware of it, like in today's age, and especially after the corona, because of the rise of so many competitions and everything, organizations in all the world has gotten very, very competitive, and it's really scary. And this is just like a whole world popped right open in front of our eyes, because everything has gotten virtual. We're like, okay, this existed, I didn't even know about it. So that was really, that were so true. So I believe that we have come to very end of our show. So before ending our show, I would like to ask you guys, what are some of the advices that you guys would give for those who will be applying to York University this year or in the future? So what would be the advices? So Zainab, can you please say?
Sure. I think, again, like I said, if you're planning on applying, make sure, you have good grades. That's just kind of a given. Have an open mind, right? I think that's very, very important. Know what to expect when you're coming and flying thousands and thousands of miles away from home. Be mentally prepared. Obviously, the ones who are going to be applying in the upcoming fall, things might look a little bit different in post-COVID world. So kind of have those base level expectations in your mind. Keep yourself prepared. The world is not going to look the same. So unfortunately, because I don't have much experience there, I won't be able to shed much light on how you can prepare yourself. But all I'm going to say is just mentally prepare yourself, right? So that you can just take on whatever challenge comes your way. And I think, like I said, again, focus on those supplementary applications. Though that's very key when you're applying. A lot of people look over that. I would highly suggest otherwise. Like, make sure you prioritize those applications. I think that's going to be your key for success. Prepare yourself. Take the time to prepare yourself. Do your research, please. A lot of people reach out to me with so many questions that they can find on the website, and sometimes it can be really frustrating. Please do your research first, right? And obviously reach out. We're there to help, no problem at all. But make sure you do your research. You know what you want, and even if you don't know what you want, that's okay too. Figure it out. Now is a better time than ever to figure out what you want to do with your life. You're sitting at home. There isn't really much going on in the world outside. So figure out what you want to do and do the research. Do your due diligence first, and then reach out to all these different groups, pages, us, and ask any questions that you may have, and we would be more than happy to help. So yeah, I wish you all the best, and reach out with any questions you may have.
All right. Nabil, can you please also say in this perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I think the concluding advice, if I were to paraphrase all of our discussion today, for in terms of preparations and stuff, I would definitely say try to go. It goes back to that idea of focusing on yourself and believing in yourself, right? Like if there's one thing I knew before I wish I knew before I applied and before I got in everything, is that I shouldn't have to worry that much about a lot of the aspects of it. Yeah, it can be scary to come into a different world where you don't know anybody, and it can be intimidating, really, just like getting out of that comfort zone and flying across and pushing yourself out there, going that extra mile. But it can be extremely rewarding as well. So you don't have to stress yourself out too much. You don't have to doubt yourself. Believe me, if you got in, that means you deserve to be here. Okay, you deserve to be here as much as everybody else. So try to believe in yourself and try to enjoy the moments, because as cliche as it sounds, the 4 years of university will definitely can have that potential of being the best 4 years of your life. And you can meet some amazing people. I've been lucky to meet some amazing friends here that I'm going to be probably sticking with for life here. And I wouldn't have been able to get that if I didn't open myself up to those new experiences, right? So at the same time, I want to say, be hopeful. You would thank yourself for choosing to go abroad for education, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But most importantly, believe in yourself. You can do this, and try to have fun, try to go along the way, enjoy the ride, and trust me, before you know it, you're going to have a successful life, career, academics, all that you wanted to accomplish. Just put in the hard work, focus on yourself, and try to have fun.
That was that was really revolving for me, because uh, the whole thing in the whole application process, I sometimes feel like applying. At the same time, like the next second, I'm like, no, this is not going to happen for me. I don't think I will be able to do it. But that is not the case, because you have to have your confidence. And if you are not confident in yourself, if you are having self-esteem issues here, then how are you going to face all the traumas, all the everything while you're gonna go there? So one thing, confidence. You have to have confidence. You have to be really passionate and everything, and you have to do your research properly. And also, I believe that these amazing people who just give so much of their precious time to us, are their inboxes are always open. So also, I think you guys can, those who are watching, can anytime reach out to those people in terms of any queries. But before that, do your research properly, because don't reach out to them with questions that you can easily find in the websites and everything, because these people are really busy and they will be very happy to give your time, but not unnecessary time. So I believe we have come to a very end of our shows. That is very sad, because আমার খুব ভালো লাগছিল, প্রচুর ইনফরমেটিভ একটা শো ছিল. This has to be one of the most informative shows that I ever participated in. So but every good thing must come to an end. So with that being said, we're gonna have to end this show. Thank you to everyone who has been watching throughout this whole time. আমি জানি যারা যারা অনেক কাইন্ড enthusiast ছিল, যারা যারা এতক্ষণ দেখেছেন, thank you all for being with us, and thanks to our amazing guests for rendering us with their precious times. We cannot thank you enough, and we believe that in the future proposal of Edvive, you guys will, your doors will be open for us. Thank you so much. With that being said, we're gonna say goodbye to everyone for tonight. সবাই ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন। নেক্সট এপিসোড দেখার জন্য দেখতে ভুলবেন না। সবাই ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন। গুড নাইট।